So, welcome everyone to Inner Power Training. That's my YouTube channel. I've got a guest today. Her name is Carolyn Wilman, and she came across my YouTube channel when I was, you know, looking around. She popped up with her own channel because she and I are both involved with the Silva material. I have been a Silva Ultramind trainer since 2004, and Carolyn likes to sell books, and she's also working to be a trainer, but she sells some very interesting books written by Jose Silva and other people that were involved with him. So I'm going to interview her today, and we'll put some more information out there about the incredible Silva techniques. I'll tell you, I became a trainer in 2004. I've trained over 3,000 people. They get tremendous results from this training. And I love it myself. I mean, I do it every night. I go to my level one and I visualize my mental videos and visualize outcomes that I want. I do it when I wake up in the morning. It's so effective. And so I want to talk to Carolyn about some of the books she's marketing on her website. And she lives up in Toronto. I'm down here in Rhode Island in the United States. So with Zoom, we can be anywhere.
I
So,
know, I love it.
Carolyn, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? It's great to have
Well,
you here.
it's so interesting that we connected because ever since I met Helene Hadsell, I've had so many Silva touch points in my life. It got to the point where I thought, I better take it. And then after a while, I realized I should be an instructor.
Mm,
I don't plan to teach it, but I plan to use it as part of my book universe because I want to learn it inside and out. So I wear three crowns, as I call it. So my first crown is I'm known as the contest queen, and I teach people how to win sweepstakes. Because remember, Helene Hadsell won a lot of sweepstakes and contests.
that's right.
And because of that, that's how I met her. And she asked me to maintain her legacy after she passed. And then my life just did a face plant. So I didn't do anything with it until 5 years ago when I finally bought the rights to all of her work and started republishing her books. So they've all been republished. So they're available as books and ebooks. And three of them are on Audible. The last one will be out this month. And three out of the four have been translated into Spanish. I've ordered the Spanish translation for the last one. So it was exciting. All the things that she had wanted to do, which was reach larger audiences, I'm doing now. It's on She always said there is no failure, only a delay in results. So
Mm,
she it didn't mean it was going to happen in her lifetime, but it's happening, which is kind of cool because it's all energy.
absolutely.
And then I graduated school. I went to school for business with a marketing major. And the reason I got so good at sweepstakes is because sweepstakes is a part of marketing. So I started a marketing company to help companies with their sweepstakes called Idea Majesty because I still wanted to wear that crown. And then after I did Helene's books, I found her second publisher, who was Tag Powell. And he was a Silva instructor again, because remember, Helene, I didn't say this earlier, but Helene was Jose Silva's assistant for 6 years. And Tag, that's how she met Tag, because Tag was a Silva instructor. And so I met him through Helene's work. And I realized he was at the end of his life. And I asked him who was maintaining his legacy. And he loved what I did with hers. So I bought the rights to a bunch of his books, including a Silva based book, which I got permissions from the Silvas to republish. So that'll be coming out this year. And that's how I connected with you because you are a Silva Ultramind instructor. Like there's, again, so many Silva touch points.
Right.
It really is the OG of all programs. Like original gangster is what that stands for because Jose really taught us that all the answers are in here.
I agree totally. And when I first became an instructor back in 2004, I met one of your favorite instructors, Ken Kasha.
I love Ken.
Yeah, Ken's great. I met him for coffee, and he explained to me right from the beginning because I didn't know a lot of the background about Jose Silva. But he said, so many of the really powerful metaphysical teachers have that background.
Yeah,
Wayne
they all took
Dyer,
the Silva method. I've been meaning to
they
do
all took it.
a research study on it and list all the big teachers that
Yes,
have taken the Silva method and
yes,
incorporated it into their programs because really, and I think it's a good idea because the system allows you different techniques to get answers for things in your life from inside.
yes. But the key thing I believe in the teaching is that the inner world controls the outer world. Like so many of the other teachers, like the Christian mystics, Neville Goddard, they're all telling you that you need to go within. And if you believe it in your inner world using your imagination, it's a done deal. You will manifest it. Yeah.
Oh, I have examples all the time in
Yes.
my life. Yesterday, this happened yesterday, so I haven't said this to anybody.
Hmm.
Last night, George was getting frustrated, my boyfriend, he was getting frustrated, and he said, I just want money to fall from the sky, like into his bank account or his pocket or wherever.
Right.
And I like entering contests and giveaways still to this day. And I entered him in a text-based contest this morning, and he won $100 to play the lottery. Like it's a gift card from the lottery corporation. So you take it to the clerk, and they give you 5 plays worth of tickets for
Okay.
free, like because it's the prize. It's worth $100, and I'm like, there you go. You asked for money, it just showed up.
Good.
And he just
Good
shakes his
time.
head at me because it is that power.
Hmm.
It's ridiculously
Right.
powerful.
But I like what you told me the other day when we had a conversation about how not everyone is going to win millions of dollars because it's
No.
not their sole contract. Can you
No,
be
it's not
a bit
part of
more
your soul.
specific?
Like, yeah, it's not always part of your soul contract. People got frustrated. I've had messages from people frustrated that Helene didn't win the lottery. And first of all, Texas didn't have a state lottery until 1992, and she had won all the prizes she ever wanted to win in the 60s. So why would she bother to play the lottery? She already had everything she needed. People want to win the lottery, not for the money, but for what the money can buy them or the experiences they can
Right.
have. So the idea that Helene and Jose and yourself and other teachers teach is don't look at the money, look at the end result.
Yes.
Look past the money.
Yes.
And sometimes I forget myself that I do this. Like I decided at one point to take my sister and her husband on vacation because when I turned 50, my sister took me away and a couple of years. And I thought, well, when she turns 50, I'll take her on vacation. And then that year they were getting married and we had gone on a couple of trips and money was tight. I didn't even buy them a wedding gift. I was feeling terrible. And they were going to go on a honeymoon the next year, but we had the lockdowns. And so we were away, and I said, I really want to take them on vacation, kind of all the birds with one stone. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I've got to finish my next book. I need to pay off the credit cards. I need to save up money for the trip. Why am I thinking that? Why am I not just focusing us on away? And then I get home and I had a client message me about a giveaway, letting me know about it because he was open to Canadians. He thought I would like to enter. It was during the Super Bowl, and you had to post things on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And so for 4 hours, I'm furiously entering, and I won one of the prizes. And I thought, why do I do that? I just should have focused on the end result. It only took me a week.
Right. Right.
And I had the trip. And I was like,
Mhm.
here I am in the 3D world going, okay, I have to do these logical steps. There's no logic. I just, in a week. And then I messaged my sister. I said, call me right away. And she thought something happened to my poor mom. She panicked. And then I was like, oh, sorry. No, it's good news. Mom's fine. I won a trip. We're all going away.
Yeah. Well, it's so hard for people to believe until they get this training that it's that simple, that you don't have to, worry and doubt and fear block. the end result. If you're
Oh,
really clear on what you want and you believe that you've already gotten it, it will show up. And that's why the Silva training is so powerful because it programs you to get to that alpha level of consciousness, which is where you need to be in order to be a good manifester.
oh,
Yeah.
and I always test it because I think this can't work.
Mm.
And then I test it and it works. And I'm like,
It's amazing, isn't it? Well, Jose figured out a certain percentage of the population is a natural alpha thinker. He honed it down to about 10%. They say
wow,
more people are waking
it's not
up now.
me.
Well, if you're creative, artistic, think outside the box, or you're a visionary, you're an alpha
Yeah,
thinker.
that's my daughter. She's
Yeah.
really right-brained and I'm really left-brained.
Are you?
Like
You're
to be in a
analytical.
pod.
Yeah. Yeah. The more analytical people like are more left brain thinkers. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'm opposite of Helene because she was a Gemini
hmm,
and I'm a Gemini rising. So I have some of her characteristics. But I think one of the reasons she asked me to maintain her legacy is because I have qualities she just didn't have. Like I'm very entrepreneurial, I'm techie. She was not techie. Like when I had to
oh,
redo her
right,
books,
right.
she edited, God bless her, in her 80s. So you got to give her some credit with the technology at the time, no
Wow.
less. She was editing her books with the return bar and the space key, or the enter key and the space bar. So
Hmm.
she just was like sticking things places and
Well, one of the fascinating things that always fascinated me about Jose Silva, and I spent a week in Laredo, Texas, where he's from, and I spent a week with Laura Silva, and I've
oh
I've met Alex Silva was my instructor. He was the nephew of Jose,
wow.
and he traveled the world with Jose Silva, giving workshops all over Asia, South America, you name it. So he was very close to him. And it's so fascinating. Jose Silva never had any formal education. He was completely self-taught because he had to go to work when he was a very small boy
Yes.
to help the family. I went to, Alex took me to show me the house that he lived in, and he explained, now there was a dirt road in front of this house when he made his discovery. It's really pretty phenomenal the way, and it's a global you know, um, thing that took off like crazy back in the 60s and 70s. Everybody knew what Silva mind control was. That's what they called it back then.
Yeah,
And it became
it's
this Silva
crazy, but
method.
I think that's where I think it was partly his soul destiny
Yes, yes.
because I don't think it's an accident that someone with no quote formal education, obviously highly intelligent man, because you don't just,
Oh, yeah. He studied everything,
yeah, you don't figure
parapsychology,
this out without
psychology.
being highly intelligent.
He read a lot of books about the topic of consciousness. But when he wanted to give up, which happened many times because he had a family to support, he had 10 children, and he was a radio repairman. He had his own shop, and but he figured out our brains are like radio towers. They send out signals and they receive signals. But one time when he really wanted to give up, you were telling that wonderful story about how he won the Mexican lottery.
Yeah, this is why I think it's destined. He had a dream
Mm.
about these numbers. It was I'll give the Cliff Notes version. It was in a bright light and he saw two sets of numbers and he couldn't get it out of his head and he tried to focus on it and it faded and faded and faded no matter what he did. And then the next day he thought, well, they must mean something. So he's trying to figure it out. He thought, well, maybe it's part of a phone number because there was six numbers and the phone numbers were very different back then. And so he looked all through the Laredo phone book and there was no sequencing of those numbers. He's like, okay, it's not that. And then he was outside and he saw, oh, maybe it's license plates. So he was checking all the license plates during the day, nothing. And then he thought, well, maybe it's an address. So he kind of, looked at the map of the city and no, it wasn't that. Anyway, he went about his day and he had a friend pop by and his wife asked him to go get some alcohol from this in uh, Nuevo Laredo, which is right across the border, because Laredo is a border town. So he did pop over to Mexico all the time. and they went over, and his friend was studying psychology, and he told him the story of the numbers because he didn't tell anybody because that would be crazy. And his friend said, what are his lottery numbers? Well, it never occurred to him because, again, Texas didn't have a lottery. This was 1949,
Mm.
75 years ago. And he went to the lottery office. It was closed. So they went to the shop where he was buying the alcohol, and his friend's wandering around the shop, and he goes, "Hey, what were those numbers?" And he told him the numbers, and he goes, "There's some tickets here with that number." And I guess that particular lottery was more like a raffle, I'm thinking, and it had strips of tickets, and they were sold in strips of 20. 15 had already been bought, so he bought the other five.
Mm.
And lo and behold, he ended up winning the equivalent of what is $10,000. Someone did the math on that video, and it's approximately $135,000 today.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, because
that
you
gave
did get
him a huge
10,000 back then.
buffer.
Yeah,
So it gave him a buffer so he could
right.
have some breathing space and work more on his Silva method so he could get it out to teach. So he that was in 1949, and he finally brought it to the world because and he even says in his biography, if I didn't win this lottery, there would be no Silva method. So to me, that was but a sign from the universe. But
Right.
he still had to figure it out.
He
Like it
did.
wasn't just
You got
handed
to
to him
do
on a silver platter.
your end of the work. But one of the things we teach in the Silva training is if you're doing something that is going to help mankind, and the more people you're planning to help, the more help you get from the other side.
Oh, yes. Well,
Yeah.
that's Helene's book,
Yeah. And that's
In
what happened.
Contact with Other Realms. And
Right.
she didn't write that book. So when she wrote the Name It and Claim It game, there's a part in there where she's writing away, and her guide said to her, "This isn't the book you're supposed to write." And she says, "I know." And she keeps writing because she knew back in 1971 people weren't ready for the amount of woo-woo that she was talking. That's why Jose Silva, there's a lot of scientific and technical terms in the program because he needed to make it sound more scientific than woo-woo
Right.
because of the acceptance of that type of thing back in the day.
Well, and it
Right?
makes sense to logical thinking people. I used to get quite a few engineers in my classes because they know they're very creative. They like to invent things. And they know that if they can activate their minds in a way that they get,
Mm.
ideas and downloads. And, but it's scientific, but it's so spiritual too, because Jose was a Catholic born and raised. And at one point, did you ever hear the story where one of his sons came in on a very, very rainy day with a piece of paper rolled up? And this is another time he was ready to give up. He'd put all of his books up in the attic. He wasn't going to read any, he didn't have time. And when he unrolled it, it was a picture of Jesus with standing there with his hand on the right side of a child's head. And it wasn't wet at all, even though there were major puddles outside. Which was pretty
Wow.
interesting. Yeah, that was kind of an interesting sign too. So he
Yeah,
didn't
I
give
asked
up.
for a sign from God once, and I had a literal sign. I was looking to decide. I was trying to make a decision on whether to write my first book or not.
Uh-huh.
And I was driving to a girlfriend's house because someone said, "Why would you give away all your secrets to winning sweepstakes?" It's a good question. So I
Yeah.
was driving to a girlfriend's house. We're going to have coffee and discuss it because I needed to bounce ideas off. And I took a different route than I normally do. I don't know
Hmm.
why. And I passed the church, and on the service announcement board, it said, "You can't lose helping others win." And I
Oh,
went,
wow.
"That's it." I didn't even need to talk to her. I still
That's
went for
very,
coffee, but I already had my answer. And it was I had a flip phone. That's how long ago it was. I didn't take a picture of it. I didn't go back with my camera. I should have.
mm-hmm.
But that I knew. People say, "God, give me a sign." I had a
Yeah.
sign, a literal a literal
Well, and
sign.
that's another part of the teaching. When you're attacked, connected to your higher self, and you're really reaching out and wanting to know what to do next, synchronicities show up. And that
Well,
was a
that's
synchronicity.
it. That's it. And I just shake my head sometimes when things are going. I'll just sit back. I'll become more of an observer. That's the other nice thing I like about the Silva method is that
Yes.
you become more of an observer. So even if I have emotions and things cropping up, I'm like, okay, I'm pissy today. Why am I pissy? Let it flow through so I don't just try to stuff it down. But I'm also observing it, going, okay, so I'm angry. Where's this going? What can I do with it? It's like a tool. And
Yes.
it's very interesting that you learn this stuff
Yes.
from the Silva method. These are kind of subtle things that aren't really overt until you get into it. And then you start seeing the benefits.
Well,
It's
it gives
like
you
it's
a
like
system.
exercise, right? You go to the
Yes,
gym
it,
and you're
it
like,
gives
why am I
you,
doing this? And then one day you can suddenly reach up to the cupboard real easy because you're more stretchy. Or you can pick something up that you didn't have the muscle strength for before, and you're like, oh, this is why I go to the gym. It's
right.
the same thing.
That's what I love about it. It gives you a way to train your mind because otherwise you're just all over the map, reacting to this, reacting to that. And, I used to have people send me emails after class going, I don't have to get divorced now. I'm seeing my spouse in a whole different light.
Well,
You know,
that's good.
yeah, one
Or
woman even went to
or
the
they get a
hospital and
divorce because
healed
they can see
someone.
their spouse in a different light.
Yeah. It can be very effective. So tell me more about Helen. Did she disclose? Yeah, I mean, how did her family and her friends react to her ability to manifest all these wins?
Well, it just seemed natural. Like I asked Dyke, she only has one child left. So Dyke, her daughter Pam passed away when she was 40. She had cancer.
Hmm.
And her son Chris had COPD and he passed away just, I think, 8 or 10 months before she did. So they passed away close together. And um, so Dyke is the only one left. And I asked him, like, first of all, why did she start entering? And he said, well, I think mother was bored.
Hmm.
Because remember, she's a housewife in the 50s and 60s. There weren't a lot of things to do when
This
the
is
kids were
true.
in school. You can only clean the stove out and vacuum the floor and do the washing so many times before, everything's clean. And so she wanted something to do. And sweepstakes were a huge hobby. They're still a big hobby, but there were clubs, there was newsletters, and she was entering, but it wasn't until she read The Power of Positive Thinking that it really clicked for her.
Hmm.
And she was, in a way, she was a little bit naive, which was working in her favor. So she entered and she's like, oh, I wonder when we're going to notify us that we won. Like it didn't even occur to her that she wouldn't win.
Wow. Now, she
And
was
of course,
working
she
with
won it
Jose,
because she had no doubt.
right? You think she was working with Jose at that point, or did she meet him?
No, she met him after she won the house. So a lot of people think that she won all the prizes using the Silva method
Ah,
or her famous spec method, but she didn't even she didn't meet him till 65, literally months after she moved into the house. And he saved her life. And I'll tell you, there's one technique. Um, they call it glove anesthesia, or you can use it to stop bleeding. And so they moved into the house in the summer and she took his course in the fall. And she'd been starting to work with him at that point. Like she had a little cottage group and they were helping him. And slowly all the other ladies drifted off and she was left. She kind of got sucked into the job. Again, I think a soul contract between her and Jose. And she started working with the Silva method. And that New Year's Eve, between 65 and 66, they were in a head-on collision because the bridge iced over because the it's not able to keep us warm enough, and they had a head-on collision with another vehicle. And in those days, you didn't have airbags, seat belts, nothing. And her face went smash into the dashboard.
hmm.
And if you see pictures of her before and after, you can kind of see that her nose is wider and her face is a little more because everything just got kind of pushed like that.
Right.
And she realized she was bleeding to death, like from her face. And she just said, okay, I have two choices. And she remembered what Jose taught her. And she said, okay, just stop bleeding. And
Mm.
it did. And it got her to the hospital. And so what she learned in the Silva method saved her life. So we have him to thank for her too. So this is where I think
Yeah,
it's
they were
not an
meant to
accident
meet.
that she met him and was learning from him.
Yeah.
months before. And actually, Paul Twitchell, who was with Eckankar, knew her also. And
Oh,
he said he knew the accident was coming, but he couldn't do anything. It was part of her learning
oh.
and that she would be
Meaning had a
fine.
premonition?
He had a premonition or could see it. I don't know how his psychic ability worked.
Mm.
I haven't read his book, even though I have Helene's copy of The Tiger's Fang.
Mhm.
And but I have a letter that he wrote her. I put it up on my blog. You can actually see his handwriting, and then I transcribed it. And he basically said, yeah, I saw it happening. It's part of your path, and you'll be fine.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
so, yeah, it's interesting. And you can see her
Huh.
face change over time.
Well,
Uh,
I'll tell you right now, I had a head-on collision with no seatbelt on. I hydroplaned into a truck and
wow.
yeah, and I broke the windshield, but I had to do, it was the first time I had to do my own work. It wasn't like I could pick up the phone right away and say, to a metaphysical healer, help me. I had to do my own work and I had to go to that place like she did. See, that was an ultimate test for her. And I always
Mhm.
felt like my collision was a test for me. We get tested to see if we
Oh,
can,
absolutely.
money where
And
our mouth
so
is.
I don't think that's why one thing people think it's kind of a misnomer that if you become spiritual or go to these courses that your life will just be rosy. And no, you're a
No,
human being with all the emotions, all the things, and lessons to learn, and a soul contract for things you're supposed to do. And like you said, you had a head-on collision because you needed to dig deep.
right. Yes. And they say the higher up you go in the spiritual ladder, the bigger the tests you get.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, isn't that great? Something to look forward to.
But
Doesn't
how else are you supposed to look at it?
it?
Right? Like,
Well, exactly. And I like, you were reading something that Helen said about Jose. Metaphysical people do have a more optimistic viewpoint. Like he, even though there were times he wanted to give up, he never did. And I think his inner being was he knew he was on a mission. He may have not known it as consciously as he would have liked to, but he definitely was on a mission. And, you
isn't
know,
that on the website, A Man with a Mission?
could be,
I
yeah,
think so. I think they say he's a man. He was a man with a mission. And
yeah,
yeah, and even when he gave up, sometimes it's not necessarily bad to take a break on the path
exactly.
and
But
kind
isn't
of
it fascinating the way I mean, this most unusual people get chosen to bring out these messages. Like here he was, an uneducated man living in a border town, didn't have an easy childhood at all.
no.
And yet, look what he did. I mean, we still talk about what he did and what he discovered.
Yeah, isn't he in like 120 countries now? And I
Oh,
think what, 12
absolutely.
million people have
Global.
taken it?
Global. Yes.
Like that's
Yeah, I was always getting invited to come over to Pakistan to teach it and I would have people fly in from Australia, the UK, the Caribbean, because
no,
they can't get the
absolutely.
training. They want it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the nice thing is some people can learn on Zoom. I personally do better in person.
Oh, I do
I've had
too.
people say they read the book and they mastered it. I'm like, wow, that's amazing because I sure as heck can't do
I
that.
know. There's nothing like a live seminar.
I do better in live seminars because I get easily distracted. So it's nice to be in the classroom with my
Yeah.
notebook and the teacher, and I can just
Right.
make my notes and I'm fully absorbed in that experience. So I learn better. That's why I tell people you have to take it and learn it the way that works best for you.
Right.
And
Everybody's
I know in
different.
person is better for me. Also, because we have auras that are outside of us, when you're in a room
Mhm.
with 50 other people and your energies are all
Yeah,
overlapping because we're sitting beside each other and you go into meditation, I find it so much more powerful.
absolutely. Yes, that group energy is really something. Yes. Well, I'm going to recommend that people go to your website. We're going to have to wrap it up in a couple of minutes, but tell us about your website and where people can find the books.
Well, it's Words for Winning, and I'm always coming out with new books. So far, I have 8 books, 3 translations, and 3 audibles. And I've already got 4 books planned for this year. One of them's a translation and another audible. And well, actually, maybe 2 audibles. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I'm ambitious. Why not? You shoot for the sky, shoot for the stars, you'll hit the moon, right? Isn't that what
Right.
they say?
That's good.
And it's wordsforwinning.com. And I've also been posting a lot of things there from Helene that were either lost publications or things that she had never published. And so I put those up for free. And some of them are audios with her talking. I wish I'd had video equipment when I went to visit her, but it was '08. We
Right.
didn't have that stuff. Or
I
at least
know.
I didn't have that stuff.
Well, everything happens when it's supposed to, they say.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
you're doing
I
good
can just
work.
imagine her with a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow. Wouldn't she be something?
She liked to show off, so it
She
would
would
have been
get
something.
millions of views, I'm sure, because people love to know about manifesting. It's exciting.
Oh, and she was funny. She was
Yeah,
just funny lady. I liked her a lot. I wish I had had chance to spend more time with her in person because I know I can talk to her right now anytime I want, but that's not the point.
I know. Well, thank you, Carolyn. We'll have to get together again because there's
We
so
will. I'll invite you
much.
on my show. Words of
Absolutely.
wisdom. We'll have some fun.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And